Today, I want to discuss the possibility of mystery in liberal religion. The central questions that I will pose are: can there be mystery in liberal religion, which has historically stressed the authority and importance of reason? And how can we express liberal religious mysteries liturgically or ritually from a Unitarian Universalist perspective? Before we can answer these questions, we'll need to establish definitions for the terms mystery and liberal religion. In religious terminology, a mystery has a specific meaning that is not common colloquially. A mystery is a belief, concept, or doctrine which cannot be easily explained or understood rationally, or it even defies reason, but which an individual or group nonetheless believes to be true. Let me repeat that. It's a little verbose. A mystery is a belief, concept, or doctrine which cannot be easily explained or understood rationally, or it even defies reason, but which an individual or group nonetheless believes to be true. An example of common religious mysteries today are the Christian doctrines of the Trinity and Incarnation. The belief that there is only one God which exists in three distinct persons, one of which became a man, and yet there is only one God. If you have ever examined the Orthodox creeds which express these doctrines, you know that they pretty explicitly defy reason, yet Orthodox Christians believe them to be true. Our second definition is concerned with liberal religion. Liberal religion is any denomination or group which stresses reason, individual autonomy, progress, ethics, and universality, by which I mean commonality and interdependence. Liberal religion is typically non-creedal or non-dogmatic. It is important that I clarify that liberal religion is an umbrella term, which includes religious expressions of humanism, like ethical culture and Unitarian Universalism, as well as liberal denominations of established religions, like Reform Judaism or the United Church of Christ. So what mysteries could there be for a liberal religion? I thought of three possibilities on a general level, and I encourage you to think of your own. The unity of life and death, the relationship between reason and faith, and the relationship between unity and multiplicity. I believe that each of these can be found in Unitarian Universalism. The fundamental unity of life and death has been a religious mystery for thousands of years. The idea that life arises from death and death from life in an eternal cycle has enormous psychological power, and it has many expressions. The Eleusinian mysteries of Athens express this through the mythology of Demeter and Persephone. The ancient Egyptians told the stories of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Christians believe that the death and resurrection of the God-man Jesus conquered death and made eternal life possible. And Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all teach that at the end of time, the eternally living God will resurrect the dead. For some religious liberals, the mythologies and symbols of traditional religions can be used to express this mystery. But for many of us, these ways of thinking no longer work, and we must find new symbols and new myths. The most obvious place to begin our search is where the ancients began, with nature. The cycles of the year naturally lend itself to the idea of dying and reviving in an eternal cycle. Plant life appears to die in the fall and winter, only to burst back into life in the spring and summer. Relatedly, the food cycle demonstrates the deep relationship between life and death. Life is only possible through the death of another being, and death is the natural end of every life. Life and death are two sides of the same coin, and we must recognize our place in the interdependent web of all existence, as our seventh principle so poetically states it. The next possibility for mystery is the relationship between reason and faith. I think this gets at the heart of the liberal religious enterprise because rationality has historically been so important to religious liberals. As some of you may know, I studied philosophy for my bachelor's degree. One of the things that I remember learning that was profoundly unsettling to me was that reason cannot ground itself. We cannot arrive at a rational basis for the validity of reason because any argument used to validate reason would be inherently circular. It would rely on the authority of reason to validate reason. And as you may know, circular reasoning is fallacious. The authority of reason is an axiom that we must first accept and then proceed from. In other words, our belief in the authority of reason is based on faith and experience. This, too, is expressed in our principles and sources. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning, direct experience of mystery and wonder, and humanism, which warns us against the idolatries of the mind. My last suggestion for liberal religious mystery is the relationship between unity and multiplicity. Liberal religion typically stresses the commonality of all human beings. We are one human family, despite our many differences of culture and belief. More abstractly, we are connected to everything on this planet in a great web of life, and even more abstractly, we are one with the universe. From the Big Bang to us, we are part of a vast chain of being that stretches back at least 14 billion years. To use a common cliche, we are a way for the universe to know itself. Yet, despite our unity with all things, there is a vast array of diversity in the universe, on this planet and among the human family. The entire universe is composed of matter and energy, which physics has revealed to be the same thing in different states. Yet we have everything from bacteria to human beings to quasars and galaxies. The unity within multiplicity and diversity within unity is a profound mystery worthy of our contemplation, one reflected in the first and seventh principles of Unitarian Universalism. The inherent worth of unique individuals and our place as one part of an interdependent web. Now that we have identified some possibilities for Unitarian Universalist mysteries, how can we connect with and express them liturgically or ritually? This congregation already has some rituals which express some of these mysteries very well. The flower communion in the spring beautifully expresses the mystery of unity and multiplicity. Lighting the chalice with the unison affirmation during Sunday morning services also affirms this mystery of our unity and diversity. The ritual of planting flower bulbs in the fall to commemorate the dead is a moving ceremony that recognizes the relationship between life and death. Now, I'd also like to add that the burning bowl ceremony that we did last week was also a very moving ritual. Excuse me. As we all know, Unitarian Universalism grew out of the Protestant tradition. When the Protestant Reformation began, the various movements were all responding directly to Catholicism and confronting what they saw as superstitious accretions to the pure gospel message. Pure. These accretions were the rituals, sacraments, vestments, art, and popular devotional items like the rosary, used for Catholic worship. These physical ritual actions helped Catholics to have a direct experience with God, Jesus, and the saints. The Protestant way of facilitating a direct experience of the divine was through the preaching of the Word, with a capital W, the hearing of which led to faith and a personal relationship with God. Unitarian Universalism has inherited that tradition of iconoclasm, anti-ritualism, and an emphasis on preaching over the more bodily ways of creating a transcendent experience. But I believe in the power of ritual for community and individual spiritual practice, and I believe that there should be more rituals to express these mysteries of liberal religion and facilitate a direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder. You may be asking, why more ritual? And I think the answer is pretty simple and twofold. Rituals bind communities of people together, and more importantly, as Alan de Botton says in his book, Religion for Atheists, quote, "Ritual is a mechanism for bringing to life ideas about which participants already have a good intellectual grasp, and yet continue to need encouragement to abide by," end quote. Rituals express shared values, experiences, and beliefs while providing a common activity for people to participate in. There are a few criteria which I think would be important in developing rituals for Unitarian Universalism. First, the rituals must be relatively frequent, not necessarily every week, but probably more than once or twice a year. Second, I think we need more tactile, as opposed to auditory or vocal rituals. So, for example, lighting candles in memory of the deceased, or to express a hope or a prayer. The consumption of symbolic foods, ritual washing, use of prayer beads, and so on. And third, it must directly express some aspect of Unitarian Universalist faith or the common human condition. In just a few moments, we're going to partake in a ritual that expresses the mysteries of our liberal faith. If you're willing and able, we ask that you come forward and receive or ask us to bring you some pomegranate seeds as a symbol. The pomegranate represents human knowledge and labor. The pomegranate represents the human knowledge and labor necessary to cultivate them, and our faith in the power of reason. Jewish folklore tells us that the fruit eaten by Adam and Eve was a pomegranate, not an apple. So it also has mythical connotations of the knowledge of good and evil related to that story. The pomegranate also represents the interdependent web of life and death. They are products of the sun, the earth, and the rain. They evoke the story of Persephone, who ate 6 pomegranate seeds and was condemned to spend 6 months of the year with Hades, while the world languished in the cold, darkness, and death. These pomegranate seeds are symbols of our connection to all life and the possibilities of new life. The death of the pomegranate gives us sustenance and life. Our benediction comes from Sarah Morris Campbell. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown.